the promise that broke the industry. In 2023, boardrooms across America made a decision that would haunt them. Gartner and leading research firms predicted AI would replace up to 80% of software developers by 2025. Consulting reports built entire strategies around it. CEOs quoted those numbers in earnings calls, and companies started cutting engineering teams before the replacement was even ready. By the end of 2024, 152,000 tech workers had been cut globally. Intel, Amazon, and Salesforce slashed headcount and pointed to AI as the productivity bridge. The logic looked clean on paper. Why pay a developer $150,000 a year when a language model could generate code in seconds for almost nothing? But here is the problem nobody asked out loud before acting. Nobody tested that logic at scale. They tested it in demos, pitch decks, and controlled environments. Then they declared a solved problem that was nowhere close to being solved.
Here now.
Yes.
So how does that feel?
It feels like a deja vu, honestly.
Okay.
Like the names are different, like AI and vibe coding and LLMs, but the sensation is almost the same. Like, is this new shiny box that everyone is talking about? It's super promising, but then comes the hype. I like to say that the hype is necessary just to turn heads and get some attention.
Awareness.
But when the awareness for sure, but when the hype continues for too long, it's damaging.
2 years later, the bill is arriving. The Mitnanda Center found that 95% of generative AI pilots in enterprise companies produced zero measurable ROI. Not a modest improvement. Not even partial. Zero. Across $40 billion in global investment. The experiment failed, and it failed loudly. But the engineers were already gone. Getting them back now costs more than keeping them ever would have. Vibe coding. The feature that fails when it actually counts. Vibe coding became the buzzword of 2024. The concept was deceptively simple. Describe what you want in plain English, let the AI build it, and ship it. No architecture knowledge required. No deep technical background. Just prompt your way to a product. The demos were genuinely impressive. Non-technical founders could spin up a working interface in under an hour. Investors loved it. And for a brief moment, it looked like the shortcut the entire industry had been chasing for decades. David William Silva, a software developer with 27 years of experience, said something during a podcast interview that cut straight through the excitement.
Like, I used to take a lot of time to build a prototype. Right now, I can build a prototype very quickly. So I think this is amazing. Like, but a prototype is not a finished product. A prototype is not a production-ready product. So having that discernment, I think, is what is missing from people that are not classically like software engineers.
That line captures what the demo never shows you. A vibe-coded app can get you from zero to something that runs in an afternoon. But getting from something that runs to something that won't corrupt user data at 2 a.m. requires an actual engineer. Stanford's Digital Economy Lab confirmed this. AI-generated code tends to be simpler, more repetitive, and structurally less diverse. It lacks the connective tissue that makes real systems durable under stress. The vibe fades fast. The technical debt does not. And eventually, a real developer has to open that code base and try to figure out what the AI was even attempting to build. AI code has a 45% security failure rate. Here is a number that should have ended the AI replacement conversation immediately. According to the 2025 Veracode Gen AI report, 45% of AI-generated code contains at least one OWASP top 10 vulnerability. These are not edge cases. The OWASP top 10 are the most documented, most preventable, most dangerous security flaws in existence. In Java specifically, the failure rate climbs to 72%. Now consider that many companies were simultaneously firing security-conscious engineers and replacing them with AI tools. They were cutting the people who recognize those vulnerabilities on site and handing the work to systems that generate those same vulnerabilities nearly half the time. Ed Capriolo, a veteran systems engineer, sat down for an interview on the AI on Fire podcast and described exactly how this works in practice.
And it succeeded in confusing me. I asked it to write a query, and it wrote a query of syntax I had never seen before. And I was like, am I just out of the loop? I mean, I know I haven't been on the mailing list this month. And then what I realized is that particular model, or the way I prompted it's a fusion of every SQL dialect it's ever seen. and it gives you this fusion-y answer of a syntax that doesn't exist.
If code like that can fool a veteran engineer, think about what it does to a junior developer who trusts it without a second look. The code compiles. It runs. It passes a surface review. And then 6 months later, your production database is wide open to anyone who knows which door to push. The worst part is nobody in the organization can explain how the vulnerability got there, because nobody wrote that section intentionally. The technical debt time bomb nobody is diffusing. There is a concept in software called technical debt. It is what happens when you take shortcuts today that make tomorrow exponentially harder. Every workaround, every poorly written function, every copied block of code is a loan against your future. And right now, companies are borrowing at a scale they have never seen before. Cast Software analyzed 10 billion lines of code and found it would take 61 billion workdays to pay off the world's current technical debt. That number was already staggering before AI started generating code at scale. Now it is accelerating. The specific problem engineers describe is what they call the slop layer. AI-generated code works. It passes tests. It ships. But nobody fully understands it. There is no clean thread to pull when something breaks. Engineers spend hours staring at logic they cannot reverse engineer because no human built it with deliberate intent.
But underneath, it was a nightmare. It was like the code was unmaintainable. And they could not fix that. So people moved to another tool called Dreamweaver from Macromedia that was later bought by Adobe. And it was great to get started, but maintaining became like a nightmare.
There is also a 4x surge in code cloning, where AI copies similar blocks instead of building reusable logic. One developer described maintaining it as fixing a house built entirely out of duct tape. It holds together fine until someone tries to open a window. Companies that slashed developer budgets in 2023 and 2024 are now sitting on code bases nobody understands, maintained by teams already stretched thin. Experienced developers are now 19% slower. Here is the part the AI productivity pitch left out. The assumption was that AI tools would make everyone faster, and in simple, isolated tasks they do. A junior developer can finish a basic contained feature about 35% faster with AI assistance. That much is real. But for senior engineers working on complex systems, the data tells a completely different story. Studies found that experienced developers were actually 19% slower when relying on AI coding tools. The reason is not complicated once you see it. They became full-time AI babysitters. The average experienced engineer using AI tools spends around 11 hours per week just reviewing and correcting AI-generated output. Code that looks clean but carries hidden logic errors. Functions that almost do what they are supposed to do. Pull requests that need twice the review time. CodeRabbit's analysis found AI-generated pull requests contain an average of 10.8 issues per submission, compared to 6.4 in human-written code. That is not a productivity tool. That is extra homework. The gains are real, but shallow. AI helps with the easy, repetitive parts. The hard parts are still hard, and now they sit buried inside generated layers that make them harder to isolate and fix. You did not save time. You deferred it. The junior developer pipeline is being destroyed. When companies decided AI could handle junior-level tasks, entry-level tech hiring dropped by nearly 50% between 2023 and 2025. That number comes directly from Stanford research tracking employment across AI-exposed roles. And the consequences of that decision will be felt for a decade. Here is what nobody explained to the executives making that call. Senior engineers do not appear out of nowhere. They come from junior engineers who spend years writing code, debugging problems, understanding systems, and building professional judgment. You cannot skip that part. Dorian, a developer and educator tracking this firsthand, described exactly what happened to that entry-level learning curve.
We don't need junior developers to write code anymore because AI is the ultimate junior dev, and it doesn't sleep, it doesn't bitch and moan, it doesn't complain, it just does what it's told, and it does it better than most junior developers.
That is exactly what the data shows. AI absorbed the boilerplate work that juniors used to do. The low-stakes tasks that taught fundamentals, the repetitive assignments that built intuition over time. And now companies that gutted junior hiring are starting to realize their senior team is not getting younger. Stanford's research confirmed that in AI-exposed roles, Employment for workers under 35 dropped significantly while it actually increased for workers over 35. If you do not hire juniors today, you will not have seniors in 5 years. That math is unavoidable no matter how advanced the AI tools get. The salary trick companies are pulling right now. While companies were realizing AI could not fully replace engineers, they figured out something else. The market was flooded with displaced developers, and that gave employers leverage they had not seen in over a decade. And they started using it. Median salaries for general software roles in the US dipped by nearly 9% year over year, according to 2026 data from Reuters and Jobs Watch. Management began using the AI productivity narrative as a tool in salary negotiations. The conversation sounds like this: we need a human to oversee the architecture. But since AI is handling 40% of the heavy lifting, we cannot justify what you were earning 3 years ago. It is a bluff. But it is working. Singh in USA, a tech career commentator who sat down with the Desi VC to break down the current job market, captured what the numbers actually show. That is the dynamic in play. Signing bonuses that were $75,000 at Meta for fresh grads 4 years ago have effectively disappeared at most companies. The surplus of displaced engineers has removed competition for mid-level talent, and the companies running the AI productivity narrative are using it to suppress offers. The engineers who see through it are leaving. The ones who do not are taking what they are given. Builder AI was $1.5 billion and 700 human beings. If there is one story that exposes how deep the AI fraud runs in the tech industry, it is Builder AI. A London-based startup raised $445 million from investors including Microsoft, SoftBank, and Qatar's sovereign wealth fund. It was valued at $1.5 billion. It promised businesses a fully autonomous AI that could build custom software applications on demand. That was the product it sold. Here is what it actually was. According to court filings and creditor claims, Builder AI's platform relied on around 700 engineers in India, who were manually writing code behind the scenes whenever a customer submitted a request. There was no AI. There were people being paid to perform as AI. When a major creditor discovered the discrepancy and froze $37 million of Builder AI's funds, the company collapsed into bankruptcy in 2025 with the loss of around 1,000 jobs. The scandal exposed the most cynical version of the AI replacement story. Companies were not just overpromising on AI capabilities they partially had. Some were billing clients for AI they never had at all. And the hundreds of millions in investment money kept the fraud operational long enough for enormous damage to ripple outward. Companies are quietly crawling back. By early 2026, something interesting started happening. Companies that had cut aggressively in the name of AI began quietly trying to reverse the damage. Not loudly, not with announcements, just reopening positions they had eliminated and trying to reconstruct the institutional knowledge they had thrown out. Brian Creeley, a career strategist who has spent 2 decades watching corporate hiring cycles, laid out exactly why this reversal is happening and why it is not the clean victory for developers that it might look like. That last point is the one that stings. When a company fires 30% of its engineering team, the remaining engineers do not just lose coworkers. They lose years of context. The person who knew why that legacy module worked the way it did. The person who had already tried the approach you are about to try and knew it failed. That knowledge is gone when the people carrying it leave. No AI tool reconstructs it. The companies quietly rehiring now are not just filling headcount. They are trying to recover information that no longer exists anywhere in their systems. And they are finding that the engineers they need are not sitting around waiting for a callback at a reduced rate. What this actually means if you are in tech right now. Here is the real picture at the end of all of this. AI did not replace developers. It replaced the comfortable assumption that software engineering could be automated like data entry. It exposed how complex the work is and handed executives an expensive lesson about the difference between a working demo and a deployed system. The companies doing well right now are not the ones who replaced engineers with AI. They are the ones who gave engineers AI and kept human judgment in the loop. That difference shows in production stability, security posture, and how fast they ship features that hold up. If you are a developer today, The leverage is coming back. Not because companies got generous, but because they are sitting on code bases they cannot fully maintain without you. The salary suppression is real right now, but it is sitting on a floor that is cracking. The moment a critical system breaks and nobody fully understands it, the developer who can read it becomes irreplaceable overnight. And if you are considering entering the field, the answer is still yes. But learn the systems, not just the prompts. The engineers who survive this era will be the ones who understand what the AI is doing, not just how to get it to respond. The AI replacement era is not over, but the delusion powering it is. The data is in. The code bases are broken. The juniors are missing. And the companies that bet everything on automation are quietly hiring humans again. Subscribe if you want the real numbers as this continues to play out.